All right, I've got my dear friend and bassist, producer, songwriter, singer extraordinaire, and longtime collaborator of mine. This is George Koller. Welcome, George. You want to play us a little bass line?
Hello, Lila. Great to be here. I'm working on Lou Reed's cremation, right?
Oh,
With all kinds of open strings and stuff like that. I'm making good use of the time.
I would have no doubt that you are. And honestly, I remember your old voicemail, which was you used to say at the end of it, "Now is a great time for a deep breath," or something. I'm paraphrasing, but my thoughts are that of all the people I know who would have great advice on what to do, in this unprecedented time, you're like top of the list because you know, your partner Hallie is like a yoga guru, and the two of you, meditation and building in time, for silence and space is something that you guys have really worked at. And so, right out of the gate, I would love you to share, how you guys are coping, and if you have advice or wisdom for anyone who's watching now.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, we've always included silence and practice in our lives, anyways. So um, this is actually kind of nice. This is, in some ways, it's supporting the types of practices that we do: Hali yoga, me Tai Chi, meditation, and just playing the instrument. One thing I've been enjoying about playing the instrument is that it's I'm returning to that same feeling I had when I first picked up a bass, which
Oh.
is kind of just for myself, just for the sound, just for the enjoyment, no purpose, no making a living, nothing like that. So that's one of the enjoyable focus points that I found that's useful.
I
Yeah.
actually love that. I hadn't even thought that, I think when we go on to make a career and a livelihood out of music, sometimes it can kind of chip away at that fundamental joy that drew us to music in the first place because
Right.
of inherent pressure. And even though now we perhaps feel a different sort of pressure, it is in a way with that kind of stripped away an opportunity to reconnect with that sort of original childlike love of
Yeah.
music and why we chose it or why it chose us. I love that. So I am such a fan of yours, everything you do. I mean, again, of all the people I work with, I work with a bunch of musicians who are very, very diverse, but you are particularly so. You toured with Lorena McKinnett for decades. Um, you've been in Holly Cole's band for decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were with the Shuffle Demons for decades.
Yeah.
I mean, when people find you, it's like they hold on to you because there are a lot of world-class bassists out there, but there are few and far between. I mean, I would argue none who bring to the table the range of what you do. You've spent a lot of time exploring Indian music, traditional Indian music, and one of the highlights of my live shows which feature you is when you get to make your bass sound totally otherworldly. Is that actually something? I mean, this is the only interview I've done thus far where someone is actually at their instrument. Can you give us
Oh,
an example? Do you have your
well,
bow?
you mean, well, yeah, because with Indian music, I really explored microtones and playing over drones. And there's an instrument called the sarangi, which is kind of the bowed viola or the dilruba in India. And so over the years, it's come into my jazz playing.
Yeah.
The kind of like those kinds of things, where
Yeah.
the very vocalese and very intricate microtones over drones, a different kind of emotional effect. And it just came into my playing. I was thinking about this discussion we were going to have today. I was thinking about the first time we played or the first time I heard you. And I just want to bring this up. I think it was Jazz Lives 2005, that big one where Doug Riley was the music director,
Yeah.
Shuffle Demons played. I knew about you, and I was in the house band. I don't think we'd ever played yet, and you came out and did a solo piece on the piano, and the piano lid was right behind me, like right beside me. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the original solo version of Baker's Daughter that you might
Might
have
have
done.
been. It might have been.
Yeah, a full out, like orchestral harp like chords resonating out of that giant, I think it was a giant, 9-foot Steinway or something.
Yeah.
So I remember that. I was reflecting on the time we worked together, and I believe See the Sky was 2007. Is
Yeah.
that correct? So
Totally.
yeah, that was a great experience with the CVC and all those musicians. Yeah, it goes way back, doesn't it?
We go way back, and I spoke with Larnell earlier this week. You guys have really come to be not only my musical family, but like family in so many ways. And you're so good, even in this digital world. When things started going sideways in and
Mhm.
around COVID-19, you were really one of the first people to repeatedly try to reach Ben and I by phone. You
Mhm.
just wanted that point of connection. And I think that drives who you are as a musician. You're pleasing yourself in that you're playing sounds that you love and make
Mhm.
you feel a certain way, but it doesn't stop there. The end goal for you is always communication and connection, and the audience feels it, and we feel it within the band. And even in the studio, I don't know how you do it, George. I think it's just in your DNA. There we are with barriers and walls between us. Maybe we see one another through multiple window panes just to
Mhm.
keep the separation of sound intact. But there you are, sort of by way of headphones, the mix we're getting in our headphones of your playing, and then your spirit, the way you radiate physically, we can still feel that connectivity. It's like palpable, and I think that you can hear that
Mhm.
on the album. And that's why, anything you've played on, which is like, my gosh, most of my albums, you
Mhm.
really give the songs life. And so I'm very grateful to have you in my sphere, and look forward to many, many more years working together. And I'd love people to hear a little bit more about, some of the projects you're involved with now. What's the best way for them to find you? I mean, you do another solo project called Solitudes, which is very meditative music, that I believe you've written in its entirety. Am I correct? And it just creates this sort of spa like meditative like atmosphere, but it's done with, by a musician who's one of the most sophisticated in the world. And so I have found those to be very satisfying and healing, which is again the purpose of that album series. So tell us a little bit about that and other projects and where we can find you.
Sure. I did a whole series of meditation internal arts albums for Solitude, Somerset, Reflections, and that was a lot of fun because I got to play all my instruments. I got to play the bass, the sitar, the sarod, the dilruba, the violin, the piano, some voice, and they're out there. They're all out there. Yoga teachers love them.
Mhm.
What I'm really having fun with right now is I've always been a huge fan of ECM Records, and I thought someday I'm going to start a record label like Manfred Eicher. I thought, why wait? I had this whole collection of singles and albums that I'd produced, so I started my own label, Zsan
Unbelievable.
Records. So you can
Yeah.
go zsanrecords.com. I'm releasing albums, singles, whatever interests me in the folk jazz world realm. Mostly, I'm staying in that realm. And so watch for that. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
I love it. And I have to ask you, because you're a word guy, and I remember you once sharing that, of course, you're very proud of your musical accomplishments, but in some ways you're as proud of, or perhaps even more proud of, your standing in online Scrabble.
Oh,
You're like a Scrabble master.
I,
Um,
yeah, I have about 7 games on the go always with friends.
Unbelievable.
There was one
So,
time when I peaked. I actually went into the Toronto Scrabble Association club where you have time clocks and your head is exploding and you're playing with really incredible people. I suppose a couple of victories with really competitive players would be the highlight of my Scrabble moments. You know what I mean? It was a great feeling.
So I have to ask you,
Yes.
what does the word Zsan mean? And was it one of your highest scoring Scrabble words?
Actually, no. It comes from, I thought, if you take each letter, it means the zenith of science, art, and nature. So the meeting point, the highest meeting point, zenith or zenith, however you want to pronounce it, of where science, art, and nature meet. Like
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you, Josh is about to co-opt our meeting here. He's
Okay.
so I'm going to say thank you and goodbye, and we love.
Oh, you're going already?
I know, so sad. Come say hi to George. Come, Josh. Say hi to George. Josh has been dropping in on my meetings today.
Our baseline that you wrote.
Well, we love you, George, and thank you for everything you did and it brought to Out of Dust. We'll share a link to your label page as well as all your personal pages where people can find you online. And have a beautiful day. And I look forward to seeing you once these, quarantine rules have been lifted. You guys stay well, and we'll see you before too long.
See you soon. Have a great album release month. Okay.
Thanks, darling. Bye.